So folks out there are probably wondering what is going on in Washington, D.C. with the debt limit bill and the so-called Gang of Six proposal. And basically what's going on is that Congress has got to raise the debt limit, otherwise we're going to go into default, and no one wants that. But what does it mean for retirement policy? And the concern is are they going to put something in the legislation that's going to cut retirement savings incentives? And the short answer is I don't think so. I don't think this debt limit legislation itself is going to cut or impact retirement savings incentives directly. Rather, what there could be is an instruction to do tax reform. They'll send an instruction to the tax writing committees to reform the tax code. And the problem that we have as an industry is as follows. Basically, there's consensus around the idea of doing tax reform, bipartisan consensus. There is consensus around the idea that the tax rates should be lowered across the board. And there's also generally politically the notion that if we're going to do this, it's got to be revenue neutral, maybe raise a little bit of revenue if Republicans can swallow that. So the way the math works basically is if you're flattening the rates and you want it to be revenue neutral, that means that you're going to have to cut something else. And that's where we're potentially vulnerable, and that's what we're most concerned about. When's this going to happen? The Gang of Six would instruct the committees to do tax reform, fix Social Security, fix Medicare in 6 months. Not going to happen. This is something that's going to take at least into next year, and probably I still think that most likely tax reform doesn't really get done until after the presidential election. But again, if they've agreed on lower rates, if they've agreed on revenue neutrality, our risk is that they're going to find money elsewhere, and that finding elsewhere will be directed at us. That's what we'll be focusing on from a lobbying perspective.